Welcome back to another exciting episode of Dragon Ball Z. Oops, I meant Andrewcast, episode 56, and I'm with my best friend, legendary hip-hop producer, MC, Dragon Ball enthusiast, band lead singer and lead guitarist, Anthony Clarkson.
Drew Martin's the lead guitarist. I just strum mindlessly.
I'm sorry for that miscalculation. The 28th, see them in concert soon. But we're here to talk about not music, although we probably might talk about music later. We're here to talk about Dragon Ball Super, an anime with heartwarming, family-friendly values that people love all around the world. And the movie came out, and it was really successful. And it was, I think, the second biggest anime opening in the United States, next to the Pokemon movies when they first came out, when Pokemon was like hype in 1997. And I've seen it 3 times. Anthony's seen it twice. He's wearing a shirt of it right now. So we're just going to jump in to Dragon Ball Super, the movie, and everything that has to do with it. So first off, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Before we get started, I think it's crazy that we are getting new Dragon Ball material, you know, with Super and everything. Because when I was in community college, like 2013, 2014, this was 2013. So this is before Super, I think, was even brought up or even thought about. There was a student there. And this kid was decked out in Dragon Ball things. He had a Dragon Ball school bag, like an orange Goku hoodie. And it just showed that how much he really loved it. And I really love it too. But he was very outward about it. And that's cool. You know, if I could wear Dragon Ball merchandise every day, I would. Because it has the coolest merchandise. Yeah. But I saw him and I was like, dude, Dragon Ball's done, man. Like, yeah, we still get video games, but there's going to be no new story.
Wait, really? You said this to him?
I thought that to myself. Like, I didn't say it to him.
Oh, okay.
It just kind of brought me down because I was just like, Dragon Ball's such an awesome thing, and now it's
over.
It's dead. Like, what else could they do with it? And now we have Dragon Ball Super Broly, which is the coolest movie ever.
Yeah, it's back in the most aggressive way, and I have to admit, I was wrong. I thought Dragon Ball Super was going to end with the Tournament of Power. And then when the movie was announced, I thought that this was going to be like a big last final episode. Like kind of like something they did with Entourage, where they just send us out with like this one big last thing. But no, it's back in full swing. And what's really cool now is that the manga is superseding the plot of the anime. So by the time anime production goes down, and it might have already went down already, they're going to have the manga as a source material for like the first few episodes, which I think is going to make it more solid. This whole Moro thing is just incredible, man. It's gearing up to be so cool. I find the best super arcs and concepts are ones that take existing tropes from Z. So, for example, we're backpedaling here a little bit to re-examine the whole Majin Buu and Kai situation that wasn't touched on since the Buu arc in Z, which was so long ago, you know, and there's been reoccurring stuff that comes up in every single arc with like the Mafuba and the Kaioken, and now we're like revisiting Majin Buu, which is like one of the staples of the series, I think, and I have so much that I'm curious about, you know. My first thing is, I guess we can sidestep the movie a little bit and just talk about the manga. You have Majin Buu, the whole reason why he looks the way he does is because he absorbed that fat Kai. And now it seems that the way the plot is progressing is that the only way to defeat Moro is to extract the fat Kai from Buu and use his guidance or use his power to defeat this enemy. My big question is, without the fat Kai, what is Buu going to look like? Do you think he's going to look like Kid Buu, but he's going to be good? Because the evil of Buu was already destroyed. That became Oob. So now we have the good side of Buu. Without fat Majin Buu, what is he going to revert to? Will he look more like Super Boo? Like, what do you think he'll look like?
I would say Super Boo.
Yeah?
But if you want to get technical, I think technically it'd be Kid Boo, but I think it may just be Super Boo.
Yeah. Or kind of like how Boo looked in the Tournament of Power, where he was
skinny,
like super kind of like ripped for the Tournament of Power. Speaking of that, by the way, Toei's Instagram announced today that Toonami Broadcast has now officially done the first episode of the Tournament of Power. So it's just beginning. Like it's actually started now. So that means the whole thing with Jiren, like that's finally out and going full force. So yeah, I'm not sure if you've seen, they already did the Frieza Resurrection and Recruitment episodes.
Oh, I saw where he beat the bodyguards. To be honest, I'm not watching the dub. Right,
me neither. I'm probably going to wait like maybe 2 years to revisit that, because we've just been pouring over the Japanese version for so long. And there's so much other stuff that we like to watch and give our attention to. It's just like, it's too early to revisit that, in my opinion. Yeah. When I like completely forget the Tournament of Power, then I'll come back and rewatch it. But yeah, what do you think about... I guess the direction that this arc is going, like, what are your predictions on Moro? What are your predictions on, like, what Toriyama's trying to do, or what the focus is? Because it seems that the focus of this arc is magic. Whereas, like, Broly, I guess, was kind of like him bringing a popular character into canon. This one seems to be, like, magic. If the Black arc was alternate dimensions, and the Tournament of Power was just like the big tournament arc, this seems to be like another magic-based arc. Kind of, it's like a second Majin Buu arc. Yeah, is how Buu I see 2. This. Yeah, Buu 2. Dude, it might be referred to as that. Like, can you imagine? What do you think about it?
Yeah, that could be what they're trying to do. I think the threat is big. It's going because Moro's big. He's huge actually in his power scaling size. I've never said that word before, but that's Dragon Ball fandom. Slang terminology. So yeah, he is a threat, but you have Broly, who is essentially Universe 7's Jiren.
Right.
I want to talk about that later. Mm-hmm. Is he gonna team up with them? I feel like he is, maybe, to fight them, or maybe we're gonna see Beerus come into play, because we have been waiting to see Beerus in action, because he is now a Z character. He is a staple. I don't know if he just wants to be this title as this character who is essentially, he just teases us, to maybe see what Goku could be, even though arguably Goku's stronger than him, even Vegeta. But is Beerus going to come into play? Is the threat that big that we will need to see Beerus' interference in there? I don't know. I feel like that's probably what they're going to go into.
It's funny because my friend Ricky was asking me about the Broly movie, and he's just like, don't spoil anything, but I want to know one thing. Do we get to see Beerus fight? Do we get to see him fight, like actually fight? And I was like, nah, you don't. But like that, you're right. That's what everybody wants to see. They want to see like what Beerus can do. And I think the height of this threat is going to be realized once we see Beerus' reaction to Moro as a character, because we haven't seen that yet. Mm-hmm. Like, we knew how powerful zen-oh was because of Champa and Beerus' reaction, right? The same thing with Whis. Like, we know how powerful Whis is because Beerus said, this angel is more powerful than I am. So, like, Beerus has kind of been a staple of, like, who's strong and who isn't strong. And in the Broly movie, we find out that by Goku's prediction, which is usually pretty accurate, that Broly might be stronger than Beerus. So it's just like, we've really opened up a can of worms with power scaling, because if that's the case, then Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta is more powerful than Beerus. And if that's the case, then Beerus wouldn't be able to do anything against Moro, because their best bet to beat him would be Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. Yeah. But that's me like reading super far into it and not seeing all the angles. Then we know that the God of Destruction ability, they can go into like this Hawkeye mode that Toppo did. Mm-hmm. So when Beerus is in that mode, dude, how powerful does he get then? Like, there's a whole lot that I think Toriyama left open-ended so he could use it in the future. But one thing he did say in the interview, which I don't want to misquote him, I think he said this in an interview, is that he doesn't plan to have any singular character like Goku or Vegeta surpass Beerus yet. So I think we're not going to see a conclusive fight with them for a while, maybe not ever. But cool. Your original question, sorry, I'm talking so long.
No, it's good.
You're asking me if they're going to tag Broly in for this. I think it's too early to see him. I think maybe an arc or two is going to pass before we revisit that character.
But to go back to the Beerus thing, we know that Jiren can beat Gods of Destruction. Remember,
Right.
we said it in the anime. He said there's a mortal that exists in the multiverse that can beat gods of destruction.
Right.
It's Jiren. You know, it's no secret anymore. So that just makes me think about Broly, because Broly was, virtually a juggernaut until he, comes against Blue Gogeta, and then they explain that their power doesn't double; it's magnified.
Yeah.
So is that fair? That makes me think about the only reason Goku beat Jiren was because of Ultra Instinct.
Right.
And
Which was out of his control. It was by accident.
Yeah. So, Goku and Vegeta can't beat Broly, but Gogeta can.
Right.
Is that fair? I feel like the fusion and the Ultra Instinct are, they're kind of cop-outs to these things that can't be beaten. So what are they going to do with, like Moro? Like, what are they going to do?
Well, there are caveats with fusion. Fusion only lasts for half an hour, and we saw that in the Goku Black arc, it was actually their undoing. They miscalculated using fusion, and they almost died. So it's dangerous. 1, 2, it's very hard to convince Vegeta to go along with it. So like it's this. You're right. It's this canon in the background that can or cannot show up. So far, it's been pure fan service the way it showed up. I bought the recent Dragon Ball Super manga, and the interview in the back said that Vegeta appearing in Super was all Toyotaro. That Toriyama did not plan that at all, which tells you that it's very fan servicey. Is it fair that it's multiplied? Like even Frieza makes a joke about it in the Broly movie, where he hears about fusion for the first time because he's never seen Vegito or Gogeta.
Yeah.
And Gogeta briefly explains, this multiplies my power by 4, and he's like, that's not fair, because that's something he'll never reach. I don't think it's enough.
I think that's so crazy how Frieza didn't know what that was.
Right, yeah.
Because could you imagine being like, what? Like, what is this? Like, that must have been so shocking for him.
Funny, to an unseasoned writer, you're writing Dragon Ball for so long, you might automatically assume in your head that Frieza's seen that. But you really have to be aware of the canon to be like, they've never been in the same place at the same time. That's so cool. That's good writing on Toriyama's part. I have to make a brief commentary on Jiren. So I've been re-examining the Tournament of Power, and it's just like, you got to understand that the objective of that tournament wasn't to kill your opponent. It was simply to force them off. So does that mean that Jiren and Goku were holding back if they were trying not to kill each other? And if that's the case, then what really would be a full power Jiren? What really would be a full power Ultra Instinct? And that also brings up the question, like, Hit obviously got owned by Jiren, but he wasn't trying to kill him. He couldn't, because that's against the rules. So I really thought about that today. Like, is that not a plot hole, but just like a device to give us a little more longevity of how strong these characters really are? Like, I was thinking about that today.
Well, Hit's whole tactic were how...
We both sat up at the same time.
You opened up a can of worms. So Hit's whole tactic is that he can use time against his opponents, which is why he can carry out these hits.
Right.
But he used that against Jiren, and Jiren was still one step ahead of him.
Yeah.
So...
That is true. So even if he was trying to kill him, he probably wouldn't have.
He couldn't do it. Yeah.
Side note, we're gonna go side story real quick. Do you think that, given how much Oda is inspired by Toriyama, that Hit was the inspiration for Dogtooth or Katakuri in One Piece?
I don't think so. And do you want to know why I don't think so?
Why?
Because I don't know how much of the story has been written already. You know what I mean? I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know how old these
characters are.
It is
very vague. Yeah, it's vague.
Dude, that's my number one burning question about One Piece. And we'll have the One Piece podcast soon.
Yeah.
The One Piece episode. But that's my number one question, is how much of this story was written before?
Apparently the ending was planned from the beginning. That's one thing that like everybody says, and Oda's even said it himself. But I think how to get there, like the A to Z was established, but all the letters in between, I think some of them had to have been made up, man. Like that's way too many plot notes to keep, But we're definitely in the final quarter of One Piece. I smell it coming to an end, dude.
Save it, dude.
I smelled that One Piece treasure coming, man. It's here. It's here, man.
Oh, we'll have that episode soon.
That's a huge can of worms, but yeah, so I was thinking about that. Maybe if Jiren wasn't fighting at full strength exactly, or wasn't trying to kill, would he be stronger as Broly? Then Broly, I see Broly and Jiren at the same level right now as far as strength, which is crazy because Broly's never even trained. So once he trains, like, is there a limit? Will he be unstoppable? I'm interested to see. Toriyama introduced him to the canon. What is he going to do with him? How is he going to reappear? That's going to be really cool. Him coming back is going to
Yeah.
be big. But I think for now, he's just like, he's going to be asleep. And so I want to go to the movie real quick. I think that this whole... First, I want to really, really backpedal before I talk about the movie. When you and I first heard that this movie was announced, we were speculating so hard on who that mystery Saiyan was in the trailer. And when we found out it was Broly, we were both disappointed. We were like, dude, this is so heavy-handed.
Yeah.
This is not going to be authentic.
And you know what I think influenced that is by how poor the Broly movies were.
Yeah.
The previous ones were, because they're bad movies.
Yeah.
You and I saw the first one in theaters, a few months ago. It's a bad movie.
It looks
really
great,
bad.
yeah.
But it has no depth or anything. Broly, before the super character, had no backstory at all, and people were obsessed with him. And like I could see it, but I was never one of those people that are like Broly, Broly, Broly. Never.
To me, that's more of a testament to Toriyama's design. I think that design of Broly is just it's amazing. I do think that the new design is better, but I think that one is just, there's something so magnificent about his legendary Super Saiyan form that's just captivating, especially in a video game.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah.
I think his new design, is definitely really cool, especially that pelt. Even before we even knew what it was, first off, it just looked really cool, and then you... Come on, dude, it looks so cool. It looks so awesome. Primal.
Yeah.
And then you find out this like amazing, heartfelt backstory that you're just like, okay, this is awesome. He's a cool character now.
Right. I love how Toriyama does these oxymorons with characters, where you have somebody who is extremely brutal but kind. You know, same thing with Goku, is somebody who's like very, very strong but very, very kind. And that's when you know that character is going to be around for a long time. But when we heard that, we were initially like so disappointed. And I'm happy to say that after seeing it 3 times and it's finally here, and we waited a whole month and avoided all spoiler material, even though the plot leaked, and there were reviews and all this, it was amazing how not only the reintroduction of Broly was, but the retcon of the origin story I found to be pretty cool. Granted, there's stuff I miss about the original Bartok story. Like, I think that the blood of his friends getting soaked into the headband, and then he wears that headband, I think that's so cool. If Toriyama didn't write that, I'm very curious. He
did not.
I just think that's awesome, man. Like, I think that little detail is great.
It's a great detail.
Maybe the whole seeing into the future thing isn't really... Maybe that's a little too much for Dragon Ball, but I like the idea that, Bartok was just kind of a sharp guy and kind of saw this coming. It really demystifies the whole thing. There's no seeing into the future. There's no vision he has. He kind of just sees it coming. And I'm surprised that I was very satisfied with that simple rewrite. Like, it was okay. It was pretty good.
The Bartok story, it's kind of cut and dry, though we find it deep because it has a lot of drama attached to it.
Right.
This race of people, these violent people, are being taken over by someone who's even more ruthless and violent than they are. And, it's too much for them. And Bartok, sees it as it is. And then they still show the rebellion. A lot of people, I remember reading theories, they were just like, why are they retconning this? Like, are we even going to see the rebellion against Frieza? And we did see it.
Yeah.
So, it's shown everything. I think what's amazing, to go back on what you said about Toriyama and the Bartok special, is he was so taken back by that he actually implemented it into his own story. So he didn't write Bartok or anything. He just drew the design, classic Toriyama. But yeah, he loved it that much that he put it into his own story.
Yeah,
so
which
it's
is
a
really
great
cool.
lore. Yeah,
he doesn't seem to have like a lot of pride in that respect. Like, I feel like he'll with other creators, Ichiro Oda is infamous for this. Like, he only incorporates ideas that he comes up with, essentially. That's what he said in an interview anyway. Where Toriyama is kind of a respecter. If Toyotaro's idea is cool, or he admires this Dragon Ball movie that he didn't necessarily write, he incorporates that into the plot. And I think it worked out really well. I also like how that particular scene where they're sending Goku off and and Bartok's interacting with his wife, they took a lot of the shots from the Jocko Patrol manga.
Yeah, especially when he walked in and saw Gine there.
Yeah. Like, it's almost, shot for shot comparisons at time, which felt really authentic. I like that.
Absolutely. And what's funny, how we remember that exactly is because, and I don't know if you agree, maybe you'll agree, you would just really, really study that panel because you're like, this is Goku's mom. You know what I mean? Like, you would just take in everything around there. Yeah. So that's like in your brain, that shot. So they had to implement that without a doubt. There
was so much that was different. It also appears that, like, Goku was kind of born a little late, so to speak, right? They didn't bring him out of this like pod until he was a little bit older. And if you notice in the Jocko manga, when Gohan, his grandfather, finds him, he's in Saiyan armor and he's like a little bit grown up. Whereas in the original Z anime, he's a little baby with no clothes
naked,
on.
Yeah.
So if it feels like Toriyama kind of made him more of a toddler, not an infant in the retcon, which I think has a lot to do with him turning into a great ape and stuff. So I think the retcon was good. We had a question. You had a really, really interesting question. I think this is yours. Why does Frieza look different in the past? And you know what it is? He wasn't wearing this chest armor, I think, right? He was just kind of like shirtless.
He was like naked.
Yeah. It was weird, but even that, like, I liked how they made him look different just for this flashback.
They made him look younger.
Yeah, they made a character that doesn't really have a lot of sign of age to begin with look younger.
Yeah,
so I like the
redesign.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, there was so much detail in this movie. Just introducing the Scouters, even though the Ginyu Force didn't do anything. The 3 times that I saw them, every time they struck that pose, the theater laughed. And that I love that because that's how you know you're in a theater full of fans.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's the whole reason they struck those poses initially, because it's funny, because Toriyama thought it was funny.
Yeah. And
that's
so
awesome.
there was so many nods, man. Even to the point at the end of the movie, just to jump ahead, where Goku is explaining the Senzu bean. And it's just like, eat this when you're like, oh, I'm about to die. I would love to hear the original Japanese translation of that line.
I gotta watch that.
But everyone just laughed, man. But yeah, I think the retcon was cool. I think seeing King Vegeta was awesome. It was hilarious in the English dub to hear Chris trying to do like an older Vegeta voice. Just like it was
deeper,
Vegeta, but slightly
guttural,
off.
Yeah.
Like I could just imagine him like, I wonder how this character sounds older, you know? It was hilarious. But and once the movie starts hitting its stride, there were some interesting sound choices that I wanted to talk to you about the night of that I still remember. When we get into the early fight with Vegeta, Broly, and Goku, they do this thing where like the music is saying almost the attacks that they're doing and chanting Broly and chanting Goku. I saw a video online of a Japanese audience watching this movie, and they love that part because essentially it was a very self-aware theme. It was a self-aware scene where it almost went back to the Tenkaichi Budokai days where there's like an announcer, you know? And the Japanese people loved it. But I feel like the Western audience, it fell flat. We were all like, what? Like, why did he just say Kamehameha? Like, why are we hearing Broly and Goku over? And how did you feel about
Goku,
that? Yeah, how'd you feel about that?
I thought it was cool, dude.
I liked it.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, it was funny. It made me feel like I was playing a video game.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's cool to see it kind of step outside of itself a little bit. As serious and as hardcore as the fighting was, which is just...
That was really the whole draw and the whole pull of the movie was the visuals.
Yeah. I had a friend, he told me that he watched it, he took 2 tabs of acid, and he was just like rolling in this movie. He was like, bro, like when they broke reality, like when they go to another dimension, he was just like, what am I watching? But I love that part. It was very reminiscent of the Black arc where Goku Black makes that scythe out of chi, and he cuts a hole, and Vegeta asks him, he goes, how did you do that?
Oh, I don't even know
he
how
goes,
I
don't even know how I did that. And there's a very similar moment where they make that hole to another reality in the Broly movie from fighting, and you hear Gogeta's reaction, he goes, what? He doesn't even know like what they did. I love that now a marker of power in Dragon Ball is the character does something so inane they themselves don't even know how they did it. It's so cool. I love that tiny little detail. So you're gonna really like this. The 3rd time I saw it, I was sitting next to some nerd boy that I did not know, and every time a CG scene came on, he under his breath he would go, ugh, CG.
I have a lot to say about that, dude, because someone that we know very well.
Sheldon Fogle's grope on that gripe.
What is the big deal? They physically cannot animate these scenes. You know? So we have these this new technology, and it doesn't even look bad. Like they made it look seamlessly because of the animation and the art style that they went for. It's very bright, and the CGI went along with it like perfectly. Yeah. Like what's wrong with it? It gives the fighting and the action a whole new depth. Like I had to see the movie 2 times because the amount of just fighting on the screen, it was so much at times that I didn't pick up on everything. The second time I saw it, like I saw things I didn't even see before. And I saw the 3D and the CGI, whatever you want to call it, like really go full force. And I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think a lot of people don't know how much work goes into
Oh
making a
my
movie like this
goodness.
that they have to do some CG because it's just gonna save them time, so they're
Yeah.
not like waiting 5 years to release this movie. And I think the major gripe why people are so upset about it is because there's a different feel visually, but it's just so minor, man. Like to let that not to let that to let that put you in a position where you're not enjoying the movie, you're missing it, man. You know, you're missing the whole point of this. My favorite scene in that movie is Goku. When we saw it, there was a pretty rowdy crowd. We the first time we saw it, it was pretty rowdy, real man. There was a lot of hungry Dragon Ball fans in there, and Goku, which is alluded to in the Battle of Gods movie, where he's doing stuff that he doesn't even understand. Like when Beerus throws that giant energy ball at the very end of Battle of Gods movie, and Goku absorbs it, and Beerus said, "How'd you do that?" And Goku goes, "I don't know," which alludes to that the God form is capable of a lot of things that Goku hasn't learned yet. So in the Broly movie, we see Goku showcase this kind of telepathic freeze ability, and he freezes Broly in his tracks, and he kind of goes into this monologue of how he understands why Broly is violent, because that's how Saiyans are. And he goes, "You really don't understand. Here on Earth, we like to live in peace." Saying, like, I understand what you are because I'm the same thing as you, but I'm peaceful now, and you should try and learn to be the same way. And it was really cool how they flashed through all the enemies, because a common theme in Dragon Ball is, like, a lot of the enemies they face become friends. The ones that don't are destroyed forever. And he doesn't want to destroy him forever. That's why that scene is so really cool. You know, he's trying to say, like, is there a light at the end of you? And Goku says, he goes, "I've fought a lot of bad guys. You don't seem like you're one of them." And it's a really cool moment. Then Broly reverses the freeze and freezes Goku using his ki. And remember how crazy the theater went?
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh!"
Yeah.
Bro, that was my favorite part of the movie. For so many reasons, because that is why we watch Dragon Ball. We're confident in our protagonists, which are Goku and Vegeta, that they're very, very strong. And then we love to see something be stronger. We love to see that.
That's why I love seeing Jiren, dude.
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
that was a huge appeal of Jiren, was because I was like, okay, Goku now is meeting his match. Like,
Yeah.
how are they gonna beat him?
There was such a hopelessness.
Exactly.
And there's that same sense of hopelessness where we saw Goku freeze. Every time we see Goku afraid as an audience, we're like, wow.
And that's
like,
what's great about Moro.
Yeah.
Because of that. And that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
like what's the next big thing? Because, you know, our protagonists that they're at their, well, so we think they're at their peak. Like, what's next? Like, what could beat them? That's why Zamasu was like a really cool character. He was a cool villain. But I think Moro was an even bigger threat. And Jiren was a pretty big threat because they were facing erasure of their universe.
Yeah.
So that's fun. But I want to comment on what you said about Broly and his like aggressive his Saiyan nature, essentially. So, you know, even Vegeta in the Kid Buu, during the Kid Buu fight, your favorite Z part, you know, Vegeta realized that Saiyan pride isn't everything. So Broly really doesn't know about Saiyan pride. He just knows the animalistic nature of being a Saiyan. Whereas Vegeta is so caught up on the pride. Goku took both of those things essentially and channeled them down with the peace thing. So maybe Broly will pick up, or maybe he'll see it as Vegeta saw it, you know, which will make him a better fighter. So doesn't Vegeta say that that's what makes Goku like what puts him over one step? Like, he doesn't fight for himself, you know?
He doesn't fight to beat his opponent, only to defeat himself. That's the whole thing. Yeah.
So maybe Broly will pick up on that.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that in the new iteration of Super and in the manga, we're probably going to see expanses between arcs of filler, I'd like to call it, where Goku instant transmissions to Broly's planet, and there's like a few training episodes or like a training chapter. And maybe Goku will even learn how to go Legendary Super Saiyan from training with Broly. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
If Legendary Super Saiyan was something that wasn't limited to just one Saiyan. The possibilities are endless. But I think that the way that Broly is now, he's a little too primal, I think, to be like philosophically profound.
Yeah.
So later on, though, if he starts to come more into like a profound nature, that he might see things that way too.
Dude, all right, so I just thought about this. So like the term Saiyan, right? And then you have, so just Saiyan, and then you have all the things that go into Saiyan: animalistic, loves fighting, blah, blah, blah. You have Goku, who's like fun-loving, caring, peaceful. You have Vegeta, who is prideful, you know? And then you have Broly, who's this Neanderthal, just like doesn't know anything. So it's really cool to see different iterations of the same species. I think that's really, really cool.
Totally. I think what's really cool is that Toriyama is such a genius that they're all they're all products of their upbringing, right? Goku, he had a very traumatic accident when he was young, and because of that, he kind of had amnesia, and that amnesia made him unusually docile, but he embraced that docileness because he had somebody very nice taking care of him, which is Gohan. Vegeta was raised to say that he is the best and no one's better than him, and he's the strongest, and because he's an elite, because he's part of an upper class, he's automatically strong, and no one who's lower class will ever beat him.
Yeah, right.
And that's like ingrained into his brain. And then we have Broly, who's the product of an abusive parent, and he's afraid to speak, he's afraid to act out. He's essentially a people pleaser because he doesn't want to get abused. So when he finally has the chance to just go uncouth, he really gets uncouth. So it's amazing that Saiyans are similar to humans in Toriyama's view, where like their early childhood has a lot to do with how they are later on. Like the reason that Goku is so nice is because of Gohan. There's a scene in Dragon Ball where he first meets Bulma in the forest, and Bulma goes, "What's the matter? You've never seen a girl before." And Goku goes, he goes, "I've never seen a girl before. My grandpa Gohan told me that they exist. He said if I ever met a girl, to be really nice to them," you know? And that's like a product of Gohan. So I think it's cool that all three of them are products of their childhood. And we see them, all three of them, as children in the movie. And obviously Goku's parents are the nicest, which is a surprise. Even to Goku's mom, which there's a really cool line where she says, it's unlike a Saiyan man to care about his children. And Bartok responds by saying, "I've spent so much time destroying things that I want to save something for once." Like, it's so poetic, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think that the script of this movie was infallible. Even the joke at Bulma's expense about the 10-year aging wish that she wants to get, and Frieza's very similar wish of getting growth by 8 centimeters. Usually when Toriyama does a gag in a manga or an anime, it's more towards a Japanese audience, but everybody laughed, man. Everybody laughed in a theater full of American anime watchers. That joke just delivered on so many levels. And it was such a long setup, but it was worth it, you know? It was worth it. It was really good. Because in a lot of these anime movies, you're like, all right, just get to the fighting or just get to what we want to see.
Yeah.
But I liked the foreplay to the giant action scene. I wasn't like tapping my foot at all. Exactly. I thought it was all very interesting.
Absolutely. Even with One Piece, like I like the fighting, but I care more about the story and the progression of the story. Like, I don't know. I mean, fighting's cool. I love it. Like, it's so much fun to watch action. But when you have a story and watching something go and progress and seeing everything that goes along with it, I feel like that's more entertaining. Yeah. But the action in this movie, I guess, kind of trope that.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The action definitely took the center stage. But just the little things that Toriyama's famous for. What I couldn't get over was what noise did that animal make?
Ba?
Yeah, Ba.
Yeah, Ba, yeah.
Just the idea of Ba is kind of like he's a liquid, but not really. Like he's an animal that's just something so Toriyama in my mind. Like this is almost like a Dragon Quest monster that we're seeing, right. You know? And those like little worms with those bugs with like the knife tongues, like even that I thought was cool. How the planet has its own little rules, you know, that these things all pile around and suck the blood out of that. So I was just interested to see the lore, man. Just the creativity that went into this movie was really cool. And also kind of eye-opening with how the Frieza Force works, right? Like there's all these recruits that Frieza doesn't know personally. Some of them have never met him. And of course there's like these defectors, these people who don't really align with Frieza's cause, but they're in it for whatever benefits. Like that one lady was running from the law, and that other guy was like this long thing. He's been working for the Frieza Force for years, you know, just almost like it was a job. So it's really eye-opening to see that the Frieza Force isn't all just like the Ginyu squad where they're all full force Frieza. They have different political views, man. Yeah. So, yeah.
And even the Saiyans would like say things about Frieza, and then the one Saiyan was like bad-mouthing him, and Bartok's like watch what you're saying, like your Scouter's on.
Yeah. So cool. To establish Bartok as a really sharp character, that's what they did here, where you respect both King Vegeta and Bartok as like a really, really cool peasant and a really, really cool king. Both had kids that were just destined to meet. So
what's cool about the whole Broly movie as a whole, so we talked about Moro, which is awesome. I really want to talk about that more. but I feel as if this movie was nothing more, and I feel like this is, kind of blatant, but this movie was nothing more than an introduction.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we know Broly's gonna join us, but we don't know when.
yeah.
But I feel the whole podcast we're just comparing Broly to Jiren. So, do you think Jiren, in a way, you think that was an introduction too, or that was just a?
I know you want to see.
I
know you want to see Jiren again. I don't think we're gonna see him again.
It's not that I want to see him again. It's will we ever see him again? Because I want to see him again. But in the grand scheme of the story, do you think we'll ever see him again?
I think that Dragon Ball is going to be around for so long that they're going to start doing the same thing that they're doing with One Piece, where they take an arc of a story that's been completed and they condense it to a movie. So how like there's the episode of Alabasta for One Piece. They're going to do like the episode of Tournament of Power, and we're going to see a Tournament of Power movie with Jiren in it. I don't think he's going to come back. Now, I didn't think Hit was going to come back, but Hit came back. And that's not counting the filler. That's counting the canon. So I never thought he'd come back in the canon. And by the way, in the manga, he comes back so much better, where he like takes the cape off.
I want to talk about the manga. I guess after this, because it needs to be addressed.
No, I wasn't going anywhere with that. I just said that I don't see Jiren coming by anytime soon in the new anime. I don't.
Okay.
I know he's a fan favorite. He's a fan favorite for a lot of people out there. He just got into Fighter Z, or Fighters as it's called. But I just don't see him coming for a while. But what were you gonna say about the manga?
So I feel like it's backtracking to Tournament of Power. So in the manga, back to the Moro story, we know that all the events happened after Broly. This relates to the anime too. Do you think when Dragon Ball Super comes back, because it's coming back, Toei, they greenlight it.
It's official.
It's coming. Yeah.
I'm now officially wrong on this podcast. I said it was completely over, but
it's a good wrong.
It's a
happy wrong.
It seems that though it seems the Tournament of Power was the end of the beginning, and now it's actually starting. But
so, do you think that the anime is gonna retell the Broly story like they did with Battle of Gods and Resurrection F?
Dude, I didn't even think about that.
I hope not.
Yes, it is. I think it is.
No, man, it can't happen.
I think that they are going to let the manga get a little bit further, and in order to do that, they're going to rehash a little bit, and that's going to suck.
There's a lot of at risk for that.
It's going to suck.
It's a lot of time wasting. The animation's going to be poorly, and then you're going to have everybody crying about the poor animation.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
That's a bad move. Toei, don't do it. You're probably...
Hopefully they've learned.
Probably already writing it.
Hopefully they've learned from their past mistakes, because those two recap arcs, the Beerus arc and the Frieza arc, had some of the worst animation ever. So
do you think that these things are gonna have different? So let's say hypothetically, if they do it, because they're not doing it in the manga, which is awesome. We're getting a brand new arc.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah, it's awesome. So if they hypothetically do it, do you think they'll add changes? Yes,
what I was going to say is the one plus to this is that we're going to see a more fleshed out retcon. We might see like 7 episodes of just Frieza Saiyan history, which might be cool, or it might move painfully slow and just be like, we've seen this all in the movie. But if there's extra details that are added in the anime, that might be cool. But I'm not looking forward to that, because that's just more waiting for us. I see why they would do it on a production level, though. It's just they already have all the elements and concept art and script that they use from the movie. So it's a lot easier to just rehash that and then have other people work on the Moro stuff while still giving people content. So I hope they don't do it. Maybe they won't, man. Maybe because the Broly movie was so successful, they won't. But dang, dude.
And there's not really much to tell, you know?
Yeah, there isn't.
There's not a huge story in that movie.
It's a little backstory and then it's one giant fight. So we might look forward to a very short retelling in Super. But yeah.
Because everybody has seen it.
Everybody's seen it.
There's no point
everybody's
to do
seen
it.
it. Yeah, I'm not going to Kamehacon this year, but I'm sure if I went, like, everybody would be dressed up as Broly, and it'd be wild.
So that makes me think, like, so with these additions of retellings and little details, I think we talked about this before, but it's hard to talk about the Dragon Ball Super anime because the manga exists, and, like, it. Do you think that the manga is canon and the Tournament of Power is just like another telling of it? Do we know? Like, what do you think the official story is? Because in the Tournament of Power manga, we have more of Jiren. We have more of his backstory. In the anime, we only know a little bit.
It's condensed to one episode, so it's very short. The reason you and I talk about this a lot is because we're purists. Like we like to have we like to have a definitive answer and canon that we adhere to.
Yeah.
Because it's more fun that way when you have like the actual world to play in. I will always go by the manga, but that's mostly because of nostalgic reasons, because I prefer the manga over the anime. But then there's stuff in the anime that I liked better than the manga. I think that in all, the Tournament of Power was handled really, really well in the manga, whereas the anime, it was handled well in the anime, whereas the manga kind of abbreviates it, and like there's a lot of really cool parts that are just not shown in the manga, and I get it. It's hard to draw all of that because there's just so much to draw. The short answer, though, I go by the manga just because Toriyama is the person that provides story elements, and Toriyama is the guy that I look to for canon material. And I think that Toriyama works more closely with Toyotaro on the manga, according to the interviews, than he does with the anime process. The anime seems to kind of be its own world with limited Toriyama supervision, just going off of the story notes. Whereas there's a lot of times in the manga where Toriyama will get Toyotaro's page and artwork and redraw it and give it back to him, and that tells me that he's more deeply invested in the manga than he is in the anime, because he's a manga guy, he's not an anime guy, he's a comic book guy, he's not a cartoon guy.
Exactly.
So I go by manga, even though the manga has some funky stuff in it. You know, a lot of Dragon Ball people that geek them really don't like it. I don't take it too seriously, but
I think it's better, and I think maybe you'll agree the anime is there for the fights. You know, that's what really draws in, to see the fights brought to life. And the manga like supplies a lot of great fights. There's a lot of criticism of Toyotaro's fight designs and drawings. I mean, I think they're cool. I'm not an expert like you would be. I'm
not an expert either.
No, well, you pay attention to more details than I do because you are an artist and you could pick up on things.
Yeah.
I think the Dragon Ball Z, I'm not trying to sound biased or like real stubborn, but I think the fight drawings rather in the manga Dragon Ball Z are so much better.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it, man. Like they look a lot better than Toyotaro's, and Toyotaro has a lot of great stuff, but Toriyama's are just so much better.
Well, you have a lot of people forget when they read the Dragon Ball manga that, you know, Toriyama was already rich and famous and had a very successful manga series before he started Dragon Ball. You know, Dr. Slump was huge in Japan, and so he had a lot of experience. He made a whole series before he went into Dragon Ball, so he had so much experience going into it. Toyotaro is this guy who made Dragon Ball AF and then kind of jumped into the canon of Dragon Ball. So you have basically somebody writing a fan fiction here in the United States, and then they go on to writing a full screenplay. You know, that's kind of maybe not the best comparison, but that's what's going on. Toriyama has so much experience. And the main criticism of Toyotaro is copy Toriyama artwork, and his pages are really, really cluttered. Whereas when Toriyama was doing fight scenes, it would be a lot of pages with just one sound effect or like one or two panels like showing the motion. But they were so effective.
Yeah,
they were so well done. Toriyama's a student of film, especially kung fu movies. That's something that he used to watch a lot when he was like drawing. So he goes on source material for movies, and that's why his manga seems so cinematic. That's why I like it. Let's take someone like Ichiro Oda. When you read One Piece, how cluttered are the pages? There's just so much to look at.
Yeah.
Like even in a fight scene, there's so much. So it can work though, because that's one of the best mangas in the world. You read One Piece and you're like, wow, there's so much on this page, like it's overflowing in my mind. But I think that there's a good way to do cluttered and there's a bad way to do cluttered. And Toyotaro's, I think, just doesn't have the most thought. Dragon Ball is really, really, really simple. And I think he does a good job. Like, could I do a better job? No way. No way. But I think he's just going to get better with time. He's just a kid, basically.
Yeah.
People are being really, really harsh. And it's like, you know, I used to be harsh, too, in the beginning when I first started reading the Dragon Ball Super manga. But now I kind of see it through the lens of a successor and someone with huge shoes to fill.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
humongous shoes to fill. Besides Osamu Tezuka, the guy who made Astro Boy, Akira Toriyama is the biggest mangaka figure ever. He's huge. He is the Japanese Walt Disney, and it's, you know, so he has a lot of ways to go, I guess.
Yeah, there's just so many great things because all of the source material for the anime is from the manga essentially, and Toriyama just comes up with these amazing things. The one thing that I can give for an example is who's the green guy on the Frieza Force? Gildo?
Goldo, yeah.
Goldo? Dude, Frieza karate chops his
head off.
Dude,
yeah.
Toyotaro could, and I'm not citing Toyotaro, he could never come up with that. Dude, I have not seen anything from the manga that could even like touch that. You know what I mean? Just that's one little detail.
My favorite example of another one of those details is in the Saiyan saga in Dragon Ball Z. There's a very brief scene where after Chaozu commits suicide in an attempt to kill Nappa, Nappa fights Tien, and while they're fighting, Tien raises his forearm up to block one of Nappa's punches, and Nappa punches his forearm so hard he punches his arm off.
Yeah.
Which is like, if you had a kid recap a Dragon Ball Z episode, what happened? Man, two guys are fighting and one guy punched his arm off.
Punched his arm off.
But then you have this very nuanced scene where Tien is grabbing his bicep and there's just blood coming out of his forearm. And he's like, ah, just screaming.
Dude, that is just so wacky.
Oh, long gone are those days, man. I think that in the 90s, there's a lot more room for manga to be brutal. Now, there wasn't even any blood in the Dragon Ball Super movie. And in Dragon Ball Z, where Frieza kills Vegeta, it's one of the bloodiest scenes ever. He's like coughing up blood. There's blood all over his face. He's crying. Like it gets really messy. But I don't see any scenes like that in Super. I think the strategy is to cater to a larger demographic because of Dragon Ball Heroes, which is a very successful children's game in Japan. So we're not ever going to see that brutal era come back. But yeah, Toriyama had some sinister ideas, man. Just crazy brutal stuff. Like even the scene where Vegeta is getting strangled by Frieza, and Frieza's punching him in the back during the Frieza arc. And then again, Vegeta gets strangled by Majin Buu in the Majin Buu arc. These depictions of strangulation. I remember reading an article about how Dragon Ball was initially received in the States. And they said violence, something about like profanity, and then strangulation. That was actually one of the things they put on there because it's a reoccurring thing, and there's a lot of violence in Western U.S. cartoons, but we don't really see a lot of people getting strangled. For some reason, that rubs parents the wrong way. I think because of a lot of choking hazards and for children, but so
it's graphic. You know, it's very graphic.
I think Toriyama did not pull any punches with the violence and brutality in Dragon Ball. You know, there's in the very beginning of the Frieza arc, Vegeta kills children, Namekian children, but like very openly butchers children, and he also becomes Majin Vegeta and blows up a stage. It's unusual for that character to become a protagonist later on. And
that's
I think
what's so great about him.
That's another genius move on Toriyama's part. Is like here in the West, when somebody does that in a series, they kill children, you know, they're automatically a villain. But what's so cool about the complexity of Dragon Ball is that we see that people who are good now sometimes are really bad in their past, and you're not necessarily a past version of yourself. You're who you are today. So yeah, I agree with you. I think Toyotaro's style is a little more tame. Obviously, Dragon Ball is still violent, but Toriyama was ruthless in his depictions of violence. Dragon Ball is very cartoony, and then as soon as we get to Z, man, people are getting their limbs hacked off.
And it's just more dramatic.
Yeah.
I remember being younger and seeing Goku. I remember seeing the androids and being absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Goku get like the heart disease. I thought that was just so
a heart attack.
Yeah, just so deep. Like I remember just hearing like the dub and just like Sean Schemmel just like the screaming. I don't know. That had like a really
pain behind it. Yeah.
Being like a 7-year-old and watching it, I was just like, oh goodness gracious.
The recent interview with Sean Schemmel, the one with the movie, they said, when did you know that like Dragon Ball was getting real? Like when did you know that the story was hitting momentum? He said like right at the beginning of the android arc, where they're looking for the androids in the city, but they realize that they have no power signal. So Yamcha's out on his own, and he gets this thing over his mouth. And then Dr. Gero stabs him through the back with his hand. He's like, I never saw anything like that. He's like, wow. When he said that, he's like, that was so like violent and crazy. Like I couldn't believe I just saw that.
It's just so funny how one guy who cares so much about basically the funny jokes, the comedic side of the story, was just had the capabilities to make something so gripping and so violent. Like I just find that crazy.
I think I mean, it's no secret he loves movies. He definitely loves Star Wars. But after watching the original Blade Runner, which is fresh in my mind because I watched the sequel last night, the whole idea of replicants, like these robots that look exactly like people and that are just like way stronger, it had definitely had to be the inspiration for the android arc. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely, so there's a lot of film references, a lot of film inspiration. The same thing for One Piece. Like One Piece is very openly inspired by the real world. You have David Bowie, you have Daft Punk, you have all these entertainment icons that become characters in the series.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think a lot of that was just drawing from existing source material, but it just happens to be something so original. The most captivating thing about his original work, I think, is it's all set in the future, but even though it's set in the future, it has this distinctly 90s and 80s style, and that comes through in like the color choice and stuff. And then when I watched the Broly movie, you know, Broly's redesign is he has like neon green and purple. He looks like somebody who's from a Dancer Size video in the 80s.
From the 80s, yeah.
So like it's always authentic, you know, it's never made to be contemporary. It always has to look like Dragon Ball. And so I think that's a reason why the series has been so successful, is because there's a Dragon Ball way to do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is never forsaken in any of this, you know? Like Hit looks like something that Toriyama would draw. It's just that looks like okay, that I can buy that. That's a Dragon Ball enemy right there. I think Moro is the only one that's why you asked me, like, do you think Toyotaro drew that or do you think Toriyama drew that? Moro's design is the only one that's like really pushing the envelope right now.
Do you know why I asked that? Because Toriyama draws these characters that have this sort of badassery attached to them.
Yeah.
And Toyotaro picks up on that, and I feel like he amplifies that.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at that new villain from the new Heroes game coming out, and he was like that dude with the staff and like all those things.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's Toyotaro taking a Toriyama idea and really expanding it, really just like amplifying it, like I said. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why I asked about Moro, because he is this goat man who looks cool.
Goat man, that's the best way to say it.
Yeah, who looks amazing.
Yeah.
And you know why? You know what Toyotaro goes off of? The eyes. Hit has the same eyes as Moro. That new character has the same eyes. And Moro has the same eyes. It's like that.
The really powerful brow. It's a strong brow and then the
red
box,
pupils. Yeah. So that's why I asked. Some Gods of Destruction have it. The one guy, Jin, who's a Toyotaro design. And I find what's so cool to relate to that is all of the Gods of Destruction. Remember, Shonen released all 12 Gods of Destruction and who drew who. Mm-hmm. So if we look at Toyotaro's and we look at Toriyama's they're a lot more silly. You look at Quitello, who's that mouse guy, you know, who's hilarious. And then you have like the Fox dude who looks, you know, badass. The guy Jin who looks really cool. So Toyotaro takes these awesome like ideas that, you know, Toriyama had. Toriyama, you know, designed Kid Buu, who's probably the coolest design ever. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's so simple, but it's so awesome and exemplifies that. So that's why I asked that if Toyotaro drew him, but I think Toriyama may have drew him. I think
so too. Moro definitely kind of looks like the Horus, the Eye of Horus, like the satanic symbol. Like I think maybe that's kind of the inspiration for him.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's Toyotaro, because Toyotaro, when he draws, he seems to have like a very obvious call. Like the nine-tailed fox is supposed to be the one god of destruction. And then we have Ganesh, which is supposed to be the other one. So
Ramush. Yeah, he was inspired by that. Toyotaro drew that.
Yeah, so, okay, Ramush, yeah. We have these spiritual inspirations that seems to be Toyotaro's thing.
Yeah.
So if we have all these god figures, we need to have a satanic one. And I think that's what the whole idea of Moro is.
And Beerus was the Egyptian one. Even Beerus' design is so sick.
Yeah, Beerus is cool, but that one's all Toriyama.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it is peculiar. Obviously, we still have that big debate between us, like who drew Belmont. We really want to know. Was it?
It was a collaborative. According to the Shonen thing, it was a collaborative effort. But dude, who had the initial idea?
I think it was Toriyama, and here's my idea why. When Toriyama draws a character, it seems as though he's very much a fan of these very clean, symmetrical characters. Like Final Form Frieza is a very good example. Hit is another good example. They're geometrical, they're symmetrical, very clean. And the reason he does that is because he's very seasoned in what he does, and he knows that he's going to have to draw this character a lot. So you got to draw this character pretty simple. I mean, he learned the hard way with Cell that it's really not that fun to draw a character with a lot of detail. And as somebody who draws comics myself, I can also say that you should try and keep it simple. Really obvious shapes so that you can draw it like really, really fast. And when I look at Belmod, he's kind of simple in design, clean, very symmetrical. So I see a lot of Toriyama there. That's like my one inkling as to Toriyama. Probably drew him more, but then we always see Toyotaro on his Instagram drawing pictures of Belmod and stuff like that. So for me, it's still up in the air as to who drew how much. Obviously, we know that they we know now that both of them drew it, but who had more control? I think that maybe Toriyama made the base of that character, and he kind of amped it up. But yeah, man, we're in full swing right now with Dragon Ball Super, and the movie was such a success. I hear that it's not going to be released on Blu-ray until next December, and by that point, we're probably actually going to have the series out. So it'll be cool.
I mean, I know the basis of this episode was to talk about the movie, but there's not that much to really go into. No. We covered everything. We talked about what's next, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, I think we made a lot of good discussion, but the reason I bring that up is because there's one thing I wanted to ask. I want your opinion. I think Battle of Gods was a better movie.
Yeah. So in that interview with Chris, he said that Battle of Gods is the best thing that Funimation ever did as far as dubbing, and I'd have to agree. The big question was, okay, Dragon Ball's done, GT's the thing, it's not canon. How is Dragon Ball going to continue? And everybody assumed that there would be a sequel to GT, but not Toriyama. Toriyama was like, well, there's a 2-year gap in Dragon Ball Z, and I never told you guys what happened there. Right then and there, 90% of fans weren't even thinking about that. They were like, "What happens after GT?" Toriyama was like, "Whoa, you guys don't even know like what happened in that little gap."
That's right.
So even that's interesting, right? You're like, "Oh, I'm automatically more interested in this premise than I would be after GT." And then it's like, "Well, how are you gonna reopen everything? Like, how are you gonna gain our interest?" The idea that deities exist and there are multiple universes
and they fight
and they fight is something that's not only so Dragon Ball, but you just can't look away. So that initial movie, man, first off, just seeing all the cast come back together and the animations and the color, but just the concept of Beerus and the concept of Whis, it was so magical. I remember I was more excited to see that movie than I was to see the Broly movie, and it's understandable why we were in such a Dragon Ball drought.
Yeah.
But I still think that movie holds up better than the Broly movie.
It's a better story. The threat's better.
That's
the thing we look for. We want that threat, you know?
Yeah. The ending is more captivating, too, because it wraps up who Beerus is as a character. You know, this isn't somebody who's completely malevolent. He's somebody who sees potential in Goku. And, you know, he in a classic Toriyama tongue-in-cheek way, he destroys like a little rock and says he's going to come back later, which automatically lets the audience know that, all right, this guy's a good guy now. Like he's our friend. We've seen this before. And the fact that Goku doesn't win, but we feel satisfied with his performance because he really did give it all he had.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
All of that is it's not that obvious to write. You know, like if you went to writing a Dragon Ball movie, Goku has to win or lose, and we feel a certain way about it. But the way that Toriyama did it is like Goku loses, but you almost feel like he won at the end of the movie.
Exactly.
Like that's good writing. The way that the Dragon Ball Broly movie ends is, and we spoiled the whole thing already. And if you haven't seen it by now, shame on you. You should have seen it twice by now. I'm serious. It's awesome. You know, Broly gets wished away to another planet, and it's very anticlimactic. But there was really nowhere else to go. Like he was either gonna die but there was no like really profound ending other than the fact that Broly is a guy who exists. Everything's cool. But the way that Battle of Gods ends, it's so open-ended. You're so like, I want to see what happens next right now. Like I want to see what happens next right now, you know?
It was anticlimactic, but in a good way. Yeah. Because I feel you know, we talked about this before, Western audiences, they want that. You know, I reread, I didn't reread it, I actually read it for the first time. I read Clockwork Orange.
Oh, cool. The book.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. I didn't know.
So it was originally a novel, if you want to call it that, because the way that the movie ends, it's an ambiguous ending. But the way that the novel ends, it's an English book, right? It has a very, this is exactly what happens. But when they released it in America, they released the novel like how the movie ends. So we as Western audiences, we want something that's big and flashy. You know, I talk about that with Italian movies, how they end. You know, they end abruptly. They don't give you the ending that we as Westerners want. You know,
right?
So
there's no closure.
Exactly. So you could probably pick like any Tom, Dick, and Harry Dragon Ball fan. It's like, Broly got wished away to another planet. That's stupid. He didn't get blown up in the Kamehameha. Probably got Ultra Instinct. You know what I mean? Grow up. You know what I mean? That's an awesome way to do it. You know what I mean?
That's a great way to do it. Yeah.
The love that Broly wants to show people that he has, you know, with Bot, it was given to him that he's never really had with Paragus.
Yeah.
So thought it was brilliant. It really was.
It is a happy ending
So.
for both parties,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to say. And I think any good piece of media, in my opinion, subverts your expectations a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's part of the reason why we like The Sopranos, right? If it had, like, some ending that was typical, it would take away a little bit from it, right?
Exactly.
So it's just like you want the expectations subverted a little bit so it's not completely predictable.
Exactly.
And
Dude,
that, you know, who could have predicted the end of that Beerus fight? Who could have predicted the end of half the things that you love?
Exactly. That's what I look for. I look forward to those curveballs. Do I like getting, spoon-fed story?
No.
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's fun. But I like those curveballs. Like, for example, the latest chapter of One Piece. I loved that ending.
Yeah,
I don't know if I
yeah.
should say it on camera, but
Yeah, go for it, man.
this threat, you have... You want to talk about threats in One Piece? You have one of the strongest people in the entire world. They wake up and they don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's so cool.
I would have never in a million years thought that.
Yeah.
Ever. I love that.
That's the one thing I do love about One Piece. It's unpredictable sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
man. It really is unpredictable. And
that's what makes for a good story.
yeah, it is what makes for a good
Curveballs.
story, man. Curveballs. Another example would be Kingdom Hearts, right? So you play through the first Kingdom Hearts, and you assume, just as somebody who's played through a bunch of video games, especially how video games have this reoccurring theme where the protagonist is out to save a princess, you assume that all of Sora's efforts are going to be rewarded and that him and Kairi are going to be reunited. But you go through all that, and she's gone.
Yeah.
Like that, like when I was a kid, it stuck with me so hard, man. That ending,
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, like this is so sad, but there's something about this that I'm satisfied because I didn't predict it. I didn't see it coming. It is a true reward in a way because it's an ending that you weren't expecting, man.
Yeah.
So,
I think probably the best example would be Darth Vader.
oh
being
yeah.
Luke's dad. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the number one example.
Yeah, probably out of anything.
Yeah.
Man.
Like
Yeah.
who would it like I think back then when I feel like storytelling wasn't as I don't know the word to use, but like it wasn't as
all
like,
encompassing in cinema.
Yeah,
It was very on the surface.
Yeah, it was very on the surface. And then
Yeah.
you have that, dude. I remember growing up, there was a kid, I was talking to Star Wars about him. He said his mom saw it in theaters. He said when they released that, like when they revealed that his, Darth Vader, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That Darth is Luke's dad, like people like fainted or like kind of clasped because like it was overwhelming. Like I don't know, man. Like that's like a pivotal point in storytelling.
Yeah.
That's what you look forward to. You don't
the twist.
Yeah.
The twist is always the thing, man. So I think to design a story but have the twist in mind takes a lot of skill and a lot of foresight. You have to treat the story like it's real.
Mhm.
Like that's how I see it. Like you really treat the story like these characters exist and the environment's real, and that's how you make a good twist, man. And
Yeah, expect the unexpected, man. Like a number one thing would be another example to relate to Dragon Ball. We always talk about it. The idea of Kid Buu, like
Mhm.
you have this like Super Buu's this big strong guy, and then he gets reverted to this child.
It's his child, yeah.
Like, would you ever have seen that coming?
No.
No, dude, never.
and
That's
then,
awesome.
And then the child form ends up being the most powerful form.
Oh my
You know what I'm saying?
gosh.
And it's just like an unforgettable battle. So
Yeah, dude, Vegeta took a beating.
yeah, Vegeta did take a beating, man. But I think that beating again was a philosophical beating because he lost his great debate with Goku, which is, I hate to retread the ground too much, but in the beginning, Vegeta's whole message is that whatever status you're born into, that defines you. And then Goku says you can be born into any status and work to whatever you want. And that argument is present throughout the whole series. They are constantly arguing that non-verbally through combat. And Vegeta loses the argument at the end, and so he has to pay for it.
Yep.
He gets beat up, man. So
You know what's crazy?
yeah.
We always talk about it, like the idea of Toriyama. Like, do you think his intention was to make this philosophical
No.
thing, or is it just on the surface storytelling?
I have two theories, man. I don't think he did, but if he did do it, he would never be vocal about it. He would
Yeah.
completely underplay the fact that he did all of that. I think that he was subconsciously doing it, and it turns out that it has all this kind of meaning that is authentic, but he's like, oh, I didn't even realize. Like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't. He doesn't seem to be the type to be looking into things too profoundly. Also, I mean, like any piece of media, Dragon Ball is up to the interpretation of a lot of people. It's there has a lot of themes in it, and there's a lot of people that theorize on it. But I think that the dialogue that's original, like the stuff that's in the manga, and that's like more where the canon is based off of, if you really read that and look at the intention of the story, you'll see like something that's a little bit deeper than just your typical hero story. And I feel like that's the secret sauce that makes a lot of people like it. So
Really?
yeah, there's definitely the CEO of Adult Swim, he said this in an interview. He said that Dragon Ball is like empowerment fantasy. There's a whole theme in it about rising up against insurmountable odds, or just being defiant in the face of not being good enough and not being happy with that. And there's something about that that really resonates with people, man. Like we feel that on a very serious level. Like when you're working at a job that you hate and your boss is disrespecting you, you want to be like Vegeta and Goku. You want to scream and let it all out, man. There's something really cathartic about watching this primal rage being channeled through a cartoon character, and you see him just, you know what I'm saying? Like the Saiyan Saga is the best example of it, where you have essentially bullies. Like that's what Nappa and Vegeta are. They're bullies. They come down to Earth, they start pushing people around, and they're like, you guys are weak. Like, why should we let you live? Why should we let you live? And they start abusing people, and then Goku just comes and just with righteous anger, kind of like Jesus in the tabernacle, just takes them out. And it's just like, there's something so powerful about that scene, because we see all this sacrifice. Piccolo dies to save Gohan. Tien kills himself. Everybody dies, and then Goku just takes everybody out, man. And there's something so satisfying about that punch, man, that stab to the bullies. And then the biggest insult is that Goku lets Vegeta live, which is like pouring hot wax on top of his head. That was worse than killing him.
Remember?
That moment scars him forever.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why he turns
shame, right?
That's one of the reasons why he turns into Majin Vegeta, is because he can't let that go. Goku had the opportunity to kill him, but he let him live. That was like the biggest shame to him ever. So that's the highest form of revenge. Like all that is just so masterfully done.
Oh my gosh, man! I totally forgot about that.
Yeah,
I have to reread it. I think I'm gonna reread it.
You should reread it. I was thinking about rereading it from the beginning, from Dragon Ball all the way through to Super.
Oh, you know my stance on that, dude. The transition from Ball to Z, I think, is the greatest thing in storytelling history. Dude. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's so cool.
Remember when Raditz comes down and he explains Goku's lore, and Goku's like, "I don't believe you."
It's not even supposed to be funny, but it's hilarious.
Yeah,
he's like, gosh. That's not true. I always thought it was funny when he finds out that he killed Grandpa Gohan. He's like, that really was me. Sorry, Grandpa. It's not even like a big moment. He's like, that monster that turned that night, it was me. I'm sorry.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I think I am gonna reread that absolutely, because it's just too good of a story. It's way too good of a story.
Yeah, man, it's excellent. It's really the characters, dude. Like that's why when One Piece has a lot of characters, and I feel like when a character's introduced, I've said this before in One Piece, there's not really a lot of weight because there's just so many.
They come and go, yeah.
There's quantity. With Toriyama, there's just quality characters. And there's connections that you forget. Like, Fortune Teller Baba is Roshi's sister. Like, I forgot all about that until recently.
And they still implement her. Remember, that's how they brought back Frieza.
That's how they brought back Frieza.
I love that, dude.
Yeah, I love the little stuff that they do, you know?
Yeah, the reason I think Dragon Ball hit... It's about to hit its ceiling. You know, they still come out these new stories, which I think is awesome. Like, it's like, what are they going to do next? So I feel like Toriyama he's like building a story, but with One Piece. The reason I compare them is because I want to know what's going to happen next, or what can they possibly do. The reason I compare Dragon Ball to One Piece in the idea of storytelling is that Oda created an entire world, like a world.
Yeah, he
like
created
a real life world.
He created like politics to this world too, which
like
are insane.
Living. Dragon Ball doesn't have that. You know what I mean? That's why I'm just like, okay, what are they gonna do next? Where with One Piece, I'm just like, okay, anything can happen. Right. Dragon Ball, anything can't really happen.
Totally, it's not as deep as a lore. Like for example, I don't even know where they live. Like West City is what they call it.
West City.
Who knows about West City, right? We don't know why there's animals and people that live together. Like there's talking animals. We just know it's the future, and that dinosaurs for some reason aren't extinct anymore. That's like the whole reason.
Such a cool detail.
And yeah, none of that's really important. I feel like most of that was there because Toriyama felt like drawing it. Like I want to draw a dinosaur and I want to draw somebody with a fox face. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's why that's there. Whereas in One Piece we have Zoan users, and then there's a race of animal people that are confined to the back of this giant elephant, and that's why you don't see them a lot. And it's just like there's so much thought that goes into it.
And there's history. Like we have to save it for the
One Piece timeline.
Yeah, we have to save it for the.
That I feel like that podcast is going to be really deep and so niche because it's only going to be for people that just read the entire manga, which is a lot. So
but I guess let's talk about Dragon Ball again. Obviously, it's the basis for the podcast. I have a theory about Moro, dude. I think with this threat, Dude, what if he somehow eliminates zen-oh? Do you think that's a possibility?
That would be a really cool escalation. I'd find that to be interesting. I think if he did, it wouldn't be the classic elimination like killing him. He finds some way to be immune to his power. Or he like sends zen-oh to a place where zen-oh can't come back from. That would be really cool. But as far as beating him, I don't think so.
So remember, he's like, "You want to see my magic?" Like, cause that's how the latest chapter ended, dude. I'm really hyped for this. I've never been
so excited too.
I've never been this hyped for a Dragon Ball arc. Yeah, and seriously, with Battle of Gods, I was excited. Resurrection F, whatever. The Universe 6-7 tournament was fun. That's all it was. It was fun.
Yeah.
Zamasu, I was gripped. I wanted to see. I thought that was really good. A lot of people don't like it. That's fine. I can totally see it. I liked it. I wasn't in love with it, but I really liked it. Tournament of Power, it was cool. Jiren was awesome.
It was cool.
He was amazing.
It was cool.
But you have this, dude. This feels like Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Does.
This feels like Dragon Ball
Z. It does. There's just an enemy, and he's there, and we don't even know what his powers are yet.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just back to that like weekly threat. Like how is he gonna beat this threat? It's a new week. Like what's gonna happen? That's where we're at right now.
And you have Goku and Vegeta who tap into divine power. Like, how are you gonna stop divine power? You have Goku again afraid of an enemy. Goku was afraid of Jiren because
of that moment.
Yeah, because it was basically just like fighting. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this guy could beat me up. You know what I mean? I feel like that's. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's where his fear was. You have this guy who could just like.
Yeah.
Is insane. I told you one of my favorite details is when Goku was like sensing the energy, and his aura was just people screaming.
How awesome was that detail?
That detail is insane. It was the coolest detail ever. And dude, like, Goku is sensing this guy's energy, and dude, Moro like looks up, and Goku's just like, "Oh, I'm gonna reread it after this, dude."
It's gonna be so cool in the anime because we're gonna see. I picture it a lot like Stranger Things, where like they're in the further and like they're trying to find people telepathically, and it's just blackness, and then they see someone appear. Like I feel like that's it's so spooky. Oh, yeah, it's so spooky.
Like we haven't really had this since Kid Buu. You know what I mean? Yeah. I felt Zamasu was a threat, but it really wasn't that big.
Here's the thing about Zamasu, right? He is a dynamic character, meaning that he's kind of like Thanos in the Avengers. He had good intentions, right? He had a perspective that you can kind of agree with. Like mortals are they're inferior to immortals, but logic tells you that they shouldn't necessarily all be destroyed.
Yeah.
What happens is he turns, kind of like we see him turn. With Moro, though, there is no turn. We just know that he brings death. Like that's essentially what his energy is. That's what makes us captivated as an audience.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, I think the origin of Boo was like negative energy or something. It manifested itself, and Bibbidi or something.
In the interview, Toriyama says, and this isn't even in the manga, that Boo existed since the beginning of time. He simply was just kind of a neutral figure, but kind of like Zamasu, he witnessed mortals and human beings and their cruel behavior, and over time he started to be more cruel and evil. Yeah. So according to Toriyama, he took the brunt of all the evil that he saw and became the evil Kid Buu. So powerful to the point where he had to get sealed, and then the rest is Dragon Ball history. Yeah. But yeah, man, it's pretty crazy to think. I mean, and Beerus has done some pretty outlandish things too. A lot of people complain that Planet Vegeta's destruction in the Broly movie, they never referenced Beerus giving Frieza permission. But we also, I mean, Beerus giving Frieza permission to destroy the planet. We also I can't even talk. We also have to remember that Beerus is the one that sealed Elder Kai in the Z Sword. So we have Beerus as somebody who appears to be very evil. But with Moro, it's different. Like Moro is just like thousands of people screaming. Like that's what his energy feels like.
It's like a more conscious Kid Buu, which is really scary because Kid Buu was just like, unlawful evil. Like he would just go around like basically like a toddler, just destroying things. Yeah. But Moro must have an agenda. I don't know what it is.
I think to eat, right? I'm not sure if the manga has made that his primary objective, but he tries to absorb the Namekian. Vegeta stops him. In the flashback where he's fighting the Fat Kai, he's literally doing like a reverse spirit bomb where he's taking all the energy and eating it, which I thought was so cool. I thought like maybe his whole objective was to feast. My prediction is that he's looking for the Dragon Balls to become young again, kind of like King Piccolo did, and become a younger version of Moro, an immediately more powerful one than anything they've ever seen before.
Do you have an issue with that? Like, how do you think it's like biting off of like the Piccolo thing? Do you have an issue with that?
I wouldn't like it, yeah, because it would be a little too close as of a premise if that was the only twist. But if there's another twist, that'd be great. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe like the wish backfires somehow, and like he becomes too young or something like that. Like that'd be crazy. You know what I'm saying? Because that happens in GT, where Emperor Pilaf and his gang wish to be young, but they never specify how young. So that'd be cool, but I think that might be the premise there, because they were kind of giving him work in the beginning, man. Like they were fighting him, and I think he was surprised at how strong Vegeta was. So
even Zamasu was with when he fought Goku. Remember, he's like, mortal is capable of this. Like even when he transformed into Super Saiyan, he couldn't believe it. And then when he said that he fought Beerus, like he was like, whoa, like taken back.
Yeah, that, or maybe the more that Moro absorbs, like the stronger he becomes. So like the more he eats, the more planets he eats, like just the more unstoppable he is. Maybe that is how he gets younger. Like we're gonna see him eat more, and then he just kind of like shrinks down.
That's so scary. This guy, he like literally like ingests planets.
It was so horrifying. Like you see the little rabbit like wrinkle and turn to like this kind of sack of just dead meat, and then the whole planet just vanishes. This is like a truly evil, demonic Dragon Ball villain. So we may see the story go into a darker direction, which I'm kind of a fan of. Like I kind of want to see the story go a little bit dark. It was dabbling with it in the Black Arc, but I kind of want to see Dragon Ball go a little dark, man. That'd be cool.
You know, it's like that root of the androids. You know what I mean? That's what made the Android Saga so captivating, because of like the sinisterness, like the eeriness, again, like we say, like the threat level. The threat level is at an all-time high.
It's all-time high, man.
So
stuff's about to pop off.
What I want to say about that is, I'm so glad we're finally talking about this, because me and Andrew would say to each other, we'd say like, save it for the cast. And, I brought this up briefly, like, we haven't heard Beerus or Whis' input on this. They have to know about this guy.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm sure, dude, mark my words, I'm calling it right now, they're going to talk about it, and Beerus going to break a sweat, dude. Maybe even Whis might break a sweat. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to see Whis ever be afraid, because there's just no consequence for him being alive. But with Beerus, we may see something. There's definitely going to be a link. I love your theory that this is the previous God of Destruction, Universe 7 before Beerus. That would be so cool, man.
Because Beerus said in the Battle of Gods movie, he's like, I'm older than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Right? So he's super old. But what was it? Moro was in like prison for like 100 million years or something.
And the fight with Fatbu was only 10 million years ago. So, and he was still old in that thing, in that fight. So it's like, wow, he was still old 10 million years ago. Like, how long has he really lived? So I guess if I have to look into story details, there was a time where Beerus was asleep. Was there an acting God of Destruction while he was asleep? Did he switch off with Moro? We don't know any of this. Is Moro from another dimension? Is he from one of the dimensions that we've realities that we've seen in Dragon Ball?
Universe 7.
Universes, as what they refer to. We don't know that. Is he the guy that killed all of Jiren's friends? We don't know that. You know what I'm saying? We have no idea.
Okay, what if?
If he hops between universes? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe his appetite is that big.
Yeah.
Where no, he'd be in prison. He'd be in prison at that point. That's fun to think about. But yeah, he'd be in prison.
But I always thought that story detail was just a little odd. Like, why would Toriyama say that there was somebody that was so brutal to Jiren and then not introduce them? So to answer your question, maybe that might come up again, and then maybe we'll see Jiren in a future arc when we fight that guy. Or maybe he's just someone we're never going to see. That's also cool, too.
Yeah.
Because that leaves us to speculate all these fun things. But, yeah, it's cool, man, because there's so much mystery about Moro. Like, with Goku Black, the reveal was a little weak because we kind of knew that it was Zamasu, like, early on. Like, it was a pretty strong theory. And
we just wanted to know how.
Yeah, how was the big
we wanted
thing?
To know how
was the big thing? How was the huge thing? But this guy we really know nothing about.
Nothing. And I love that so far.
I know. I just love, like, just little details about him. Like, when you notice when he was in the ship, the guy that was driving him, which is kind of like Saiyan size, he's so much bigger than him. He, like, towers over him.
Dude, for some reason I love that. Like remember when I was reading One Piece? Because I just read One Piece in the past year or whatever it was. When I first saw Whitebeard, and I was just obsessed with how big he was. Like, he wasn't a giant, but he was just massive. Yeah.
The same thing with Doflamingo. Doflamingo's like 13 feet tall.
Dude,
and it's just like, whoa.
I love that. Yeah.
Oda's really cool about you know, a lot of artists might shy away from this because it's hard to draw fight scenes with like characters that are so oddly sized. But, you know, you have Luffy fighting Katakuri, and Katakuri is just like...
He's like 14 feet.
Yeah, he's super tall. And it's just, it makes it more interesting because you're like, I don't see this a lot in animation. I don't see this a lot in comics. I'm used to seeing, you know, Batman fight Joker, and they're kind of the same height. Like, it's really cool to see this diversity of body shapes, and just like, wow, that was a really interesting fight scene. Yeah, I like that.
It's what drew me to One Piece, because I remember... We gotta stop talking about One Piece on this episode.
Dude, we have plenty of time, man. Okay. We have like 10 more minutes in this podcast, so we can just,
Because the one thing that drew me to One Piece, because you've read it for a long time and you rave about it, but like the one thing that drew me to it was the cartooniness of it, and I feel these different sizes are very cartoony. You know what I mean? And I love that, and that's what I find so appealing about Dragon Ball is the character design. You have Toriyama, which is arguably the best, you know what I mean, character designer ever. So yeah, like that's I love that. I think that's really cool. So with Moro, like how big he is, and dude, when he ripped off that cloak,
that was a huge moment.
He's thin.
That was a huge moment. Yeah, he was so creepy.
He's like creepy and thin. Like he looks like that, dude. It's just so awesome.
Yeah, it's just like, what is gonna happen? That's what I'm wondering, because physically he doesn't look like he's gonna be able to fight them. So what is his magic capable of? Like that's my thing. What is his magic he's talking about?
And the way he says it, it's like you want to see. I love how it's called magic. I think that is, it's not power, just it's magic. I think that's so cool. Yeah, it's so childish, but it's just so cool.
Well, it's something that's always existed in Dragon Ball. We have these moments, like I was talking about in the group chat, where Piccolo is manipulating clothes out of nothing, and Kibito is making a gi for Gohan to wear. We have these instances of magic that are like never really referred to later on, and it's just like, can that be used as combat attack? We don't see that in Dragon Ball Z, but we see these short instances of it, and now it seems like we have a master of that ability.
That's
and
so
he's
cool.
gonna show what he can do.
Because we're so used to like, we have ki blast, blah blah blah, but that's not really magic. That's just energy. So we're so used to seeing melee and kung fu, and like we see someone who implements like magic powers. Like that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's just like, how does ki fare against that? How does being strong fare against that? Do Goku and Vegeta now have to learn a magic abilities? Like, what's gonna happen? You know, it's just what's awesome is that I thought for sure that they couldn't. I said this on the podcast. I said after Tournament of Power, where is there left to go?
Exactly, dude. And that's the number one thing. And like Toriyama, dude, he's coming up with these things.
He's coming up with it.
He has Toyotaro there to help him. And dude, I'll tell you this, man. I am a fan of Toyotaro. Like we were saying, like his fight scenes, blah blah blah. But dude, like Toyotaro, from my understanding, I feel like he's given Toriyama kind of the push. You know what I mean? Like
he is. He totally is.
Because I remember, I think I said this on the podcast before. Toriyama said like, you know, he's not as invested as he once was. You know what I mean? But he said it himself. I think I believe, I don't want to misquote it, but he said he's like, this is too big. Like I can't let this go completely. So like he loves it. You know what I mean? It's you know, it's funny. I sometimes have this vision in my head where like Toriyama like thinks about the time budget he was on, dude, and he kind of like wakes up in the middle of the night. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you know how people have dreams about like, oh, like I'm gonna prepare for this test or something. Like, you think Toriyama thinks about that?
Oh yeah,
like, this chapter has to get done.
I'm sure, man.
That's
because
awful,
that was so rigorous, dude. And you know, he had a lot of people pressuring him for that, man. It was like something. I'm sure I wasn't around then. You weren't around then either, but I'm sure it was something like nothing you've ever seen before.
Yeah, right. It's awful.
So yeah, I'm sure he's been in a lot of pressure-filled situations. But yeah, I mean, fairly that's behind him. He designs video games. That's a lot less stress. It probably takes a lot more time.
But now he has that successor to bounce ideas off of with. You know what I mean?
And that's going to be the true successor, man. Like that's going to be the guy writing Dragon Ball when, you know, God forbid Toriyama passes away. If he passes away sooner than later, that's going to be the guy writing the story. So you got to have a lot of respect for him, man. If Toriyama chose him, that's huge. That's huge. Yeah. So I have no choice but to love him. I have no choice but to trust him if you look at it that way. You know, so yeah.
So like with this arc, like I love how we're talking about the Broly movie, but I feel this, I don't know if it's bigger. I don't want to use the word bigger, but it's
bigger. It's bigger than the movie.
This is bigger than the movie because the movie was, again, like we said, like it's not this super deep story, but this has a lot of weight to it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's what's exciting about it. Yeah. I feel as if like going into the Broly movie, we knew what was going to happen.
Of course, yeah.
We knew what was going to happen. It was retelling a Saiyan story. I thought we were going to get a little bit more history. Like,
me too.
Like the inception of these things, like where did they come from? You know what I mean? I would like to see that one day eventually. I don't think we'll ever see that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't think we'll see Yamoshi. Maybe with Moro we might. Probably not. I don't know. But
we might hear a reference because he's been around so long. He might have like met him before. That would be crazy if he was like, "You remind me of Yamoshi." Like that'd be wild.
Yeah, like Saiyans. Like
Yeah.
I fought Saiyans before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that'd
or
be
I've seen
cool.
God form before. Like this is what Yamoshi did. Like that'd be interesting.
It'd be cool if like he's surprised by the God. Dude, what if it doesn't even phase him? Like God energy.
I thought
like,
that when Vegeta was fighting him in this chapter, he was blue. I don't remember for sure.
I
It's
don't
hard.
think,
to,
no,
it's
I
hard
think
to,
he just like punched him once or something. I don't think
Okay.
he went blue. I don't really remember.
He went Super Saiyan. It's hard to tell in the manga. They just put tone in the hair. Like that's how you know. But
What was I gonna say? I had a point.
they said, would he be surprised by God form?
Yeah, like would it really even bother him or affect him or anything? Like again, like his threat level just way too big.
Maybe he's a deity himself. Maybe he's just in a constant state of deity power, so it just means nothing to him. Like fighting Moro in God form is just like fighting him in base form.
Yeah.
But then again, that's kind of how Beerus is, because Beerus is a god. But
I'm telling you, man, I think we're gonna see Beerus get his hands dirty. I think we're gonna see them.
I want to see them fight so bad.
Oh, I think it's gonna happen.
I want to see them fight so bad. If he was just like, trust me, like you have to let me fight this guy. Like be like, whoa.
Like it's something I have to do.
And then like Whis just watches the fight, and even though Beerus loses, like he can't do anything about it. And then we might even see like a human moment from Whis, just a little bit, just a tiny little like, man, I don't want to see this happen. Like I'm a little attached to Beerus. Like that would be kind of cool. But I don't know, man. It could be anything. Are we gonna see the Grand Priest again? Who knows? I think the Grand Priest could come through and be like, Moro, like I have to stop you. Like, huh? Like, dude, it could get real.
It really, really could. Oh, sorry, dude. Like, what if like, again, like I think he'll like. I think Zeno's gonna get involved, dude, in some type of way.
I think
because
so too.
Yeah, the way that they brought up this guy, like I really think like he's gonna get involved with that, dude. Like
you know, there's gonna be a panel when Moro like it's gonna be classic anime. Moro's gonna be like, huh? Why is there two of you? The others, you
last
know.
I checked, there was just one. Like,
I always remember just one. Where did this other one come from? It's gonna be classic.
awesome.
Yeah, I think Zeno's gonna get involved, man. I think this arc is gonna touch on like every element we've seen in Super so far, and that's how our reintroduction is like. Everything is referenced, man. So
yeah,
it's gonna be big. I'm calling that we see a new form of maybe Goku, or we just see Ultra Instinct again. We have to see something.
Yeah.
This threat is too powerful just to be like avoided or. But that's another thing I love about Dragon Ball. Like, there's not always a winner or a loser. Like sometimes it's just like we sealed him away, or he got reincarnated. It could be anything. So I don't know. But
so yeah, I guess that's everything we had to say about that. But there's one thing I wanted to talk about with Broly being introduced. So I think Broly is, because I feel it is now inevitable that we're going to go to Sadala. It'll be after the Moro arc. You know what I mean?
I forgot all about that.
Yeah. I think Broly's gonna go with them. Yeah.
That'd
in
be
Universe
so
6,
cool.
yeah, I think that's gonna happen.
That'd be so cool. And then maybe we'll finally get like an explanation as to why Khalifa can go Super Saiyan God, and that both of them are like the opposites of each other.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see that.
That'd be cool if they finally like acknowledge that, because they didn't acknowledge it in the movie. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be Broly's introduction, is when they go there. They'll be like, "Oh, we're going to this place. Like I promised Kaba," and Goku's like, "Hey, let's go bring Broly," or something like that. Yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen.
You think Sadala's gonna be the next arc after Moro,
Yeah.
or do you think Sadala's gonna be this arc?
No, dude, no way.
What if they have to just like recruit Saiyans to like beat Moro,
Like an
or
army
something?
against this one guy.
Yeah, like what if this is like the Infinity War of Dragon Ball?
Do you think this is the intro?
What if it is?
Maybe. Do you think this is the introduction? Because we know about the God ranks and the afterlife and the Kais and all that. Do you think this is the introduction to the underworld? Because I feel as if this will have they have to introduce that into the story in some way.
They kind of did with Deborah. We know that Deborah is from Hell, and like he's a demon, and that there's like a whole demon race kinda. So maybe this guy is somehow related to Deborah's kind, because he does have horns. I mean, I'm really grasping at straws here, but the demonology was introduced in Z. Like Deborah was very obviously a demon.
I think King Yama is gonna be in this.
I haven't seen King Yama in Super at all. No, wait, have we? Yeah, when Goku approaches him to ask if Frieza came through the gates. Yeah, Yama might get involved. I think in this arc, every subset is going to be involved. King Kai, Yama, we're going to see it all, man. We're going to see all the Kais. This is going to be obviously the biggest threat so far, man.
Maybe
even another universe joining in. Like I think this is going to be the ultimate thing. I don't think it's gonna be end of the Super, but I think it's gonna be a bigger arc than the Tournament of Power, which means it's probably gonna be pretty long.
Yeah.
Pretty long. Like Broly was almost filler, and that's like silly to say, but Broly was filler essentially for like this arc.
Yeah. It was just, like canon-esque filler. Again, like there was no depth. We knew what we were getting.
There's no progression. Yeah, we were just gonna see Broly and Goku fight. Like that's it. So it's just like
so worth it. So worth the wait and totally enjoyable.
Totally.
So that's the summary. Dragon Ball Super Broly, awesome movie. So much fun.
So much fun, and we're excited for the future. We're excited for Moro. Super Bowl Sunday. Hopefully, when you see this, you had already watched the Super Bowl, and then you could say to your friends, "I watched the Super Bowl." So we're ending now, so people can watch the game. We'll see you next time. Episode 56. We're out.
Bye.
Peace.